Elon Musk, Sam Altman. $130 billion and a 3-week trial over a $1 trillion broken promise. It revealed something nobody saw coming and left the biggest question unanswered. In April 2026, the most watched tech trial in history began in a federal courthouse in Oakland, California. On one side, Elon Musk, the world's wealthiest person, co-founder of OpenAI, now its most powerful enemy. On the other, Sam Altman, the man who turned a nonprofit promising to give AI to humanity into a $1 trillion empire. Musk's public argument was simple and compelling. Altman had betrayed the original mission. A promise had been made. That promise had been broken, and someone needed to be held accountable. But OpenAI told a completely different story. They said Musk didn't file this lawsuit to protect humanity. They said he filed it because he tried to take over OpenAI once before, failed, and then built a competing AI company, and that this lawsuit was never about principle at all. The jury took less than 2 hours to decide, but the verdict is not the most interesting part of this story. The most interesting part is the question the trial couldn't answer, and that nobody is asking clearly enough. Was Elon Musk trying to save AI from Sam Altman, or was he trying to destroy a competitor? Today, Gated lays out both cases and lets you decide. December 2015, San Francisco. Elon Musk and Sam Altman sat down together with a shared and genuine fear. Both men believed artificial general intelligence, AI smarter than humans, was coming, and both believed that if it arrived inside a for-profit company, inside Google, inside Microsoft, inside any single corporation driven by shareholder returns, the consequences for humanity could be catastrophic. So they built something designed to prevent exactly that. OpenAI, a non-profit, with a mission statement unlike anything a technology company had ever committed to in writing. To advance digital intelligence in the way that is most likely to benefit humanity as a whole, unconstrained by a need to generate financial return. The founding group pledged over $1 billion combined. All research would be published openly. The technology would belong to everyone. As a nonprofit, its assets were legally dedicated to humanity's benefit. They could not simply be redirected to private hands. Musk donated $38 million personally. His fear of unchecked AI was genuine. This part of the story is not in dispute. What happened next is. In early 2018, just 3 years after co-founding OpenAI with a mission to keep AI out of corporate control, Elon Musk walked into a meeting and proposed putting OpenAI under corporate control, specifically his corporate control. He proposed taking a majority stake in a new for-profit subsidiary, or, alternatively, folding OpenAI entirely into Tesla. The other co-founders rejected both proposals. This is the detail that changes everything about how you read this story. The man who would later sue OpenAI for betraying its nonprofit mission had, in 2018, proposed converting it into a for-profit company, as long as he was running it. When asked about this during the trial, Musk's position was that his proposal was different, that under his leadership, the mission would have been protected, that Altman couldn't be trusted to protect it, that the difference wasn't the structure, it was the person in charge. That argument is either completely sincere or completely self-serving, possibly both. Musk left the OpenAI board shortly after his proposal was rejected. He cited a potential conflict of interest with Tesla's growing AI work. That conflict was real, but it arrived conveniently after he lost the vote. He went quiet on OpenAI for several years. Then ChatGPT launched in late 2022 and changed everything. ChatGPT became the fastest adopted technology in human history. Over 500 million weekly users within 2 years. To put that in perspective, there are approximately 342 million people in the US. ChatGPT had more users than the entire United States population. The nonprofit that was supposed to give AI to humanity had accidentally built the most commercially valuable AI product on Earth. Musk watched this happen from the outside. In 2023, he founded xAI, his own competing AI lab. Grok crossed 100 million users within 2 years. Then in February 2024, he filed the lawsuit. OpenAI argued his real motive was to slow down a competitor. Musk had stayed silent for years, said nothing when the capped profit subsidiary was created in 2019, nothing when Microsoft invested $1 billion. He filed the lawsuit 1 year after founding his competing AI company. OpenAI's argument, the timing was not a coincidence. Here is where intellectual honesty requires making Musk's case as strongly as possible, because it is not a weak case. The board that fired Altman, researchers whose entire purpose was AI safety, concluded he had not been candid with them. That ChatGPT launched without their knowledge. That commercial pressure was overriding the safety mission they were legally required to protect. Those people were not Elon Musk. They had no competing AI company, no financial interest in OpenAI's failure. They were overruled in 5 days by an employee revolt and Microsoft's financial leverage. The safety team OpenAI had promised 20% of its computing resources was disbanded. Its leaders resigned in protest. The mission statement was changed 6 times. The word safely was quietly removed from the most recent version. Ilya Sutskever, OpenAI's co-founder, chief scientist, and one of the board members who voted to fire Altman, resigned in May 2024. He is now building a competing AI safety lab called Safe Superintelligence. The man who helped build OpenAI, tried to protect it, and lost, started over. Musk's argument, that Altman cannot be trusted to steward the most consequential technology in human history, is not without evidence. The trial began April 27, 2026, 3 weeks of testimony, the most watched AI legal proceeding in history. Musk sought $130 billion in damages, the complete unwinding of OpenAI's conversion to a public benefit corporation, the removal of Altman and Brockman from their roles. OpenAI's defense introduced the 2018 Tesla merger proposal. They argued Musk knew there was never a permanent promise to keep OpenAI nonprofit, and that he filed this lawsuit because he couldn't have the unilateral control he wanted. They pointed out that OpenAI warned its investors in January 2026 to expect Musk to make what it called deliberately outlandish claims during the trial, that OpenAI's own lawyers described the lawsuit as having no more merit than the $38 million Musk originally donated. And then came the detail nobody saw coming. 2 days before the trial began, after 2 years of public statements about principle and betrayal and humanity, Musk quietly texted Greg Brockman, his co-founder, the man he was about to face in court. He asked if they could settle. Brockman counterproposed a clean slate. Both sides drop all claims and walk away. Musk refused. Instead, he fired back a text that OpenAI's lawyers would later expose in a Sunday court filing. By the end of this week, you and Sam will be the most hated men in America. If you insist, so it will be. Think about what that means. The man who spent 2 years telling the world this was about the future of humanity, tried to make it disappear privately, 2 days before the cameras turned on. No press release, no public statement. A quiet text. What does that tell you? Maybe it means he was pragmatic. Maybe it means he knew the case was weaker than he'd claimed. Maybe it means both things were always true simultaneously. Genuine concern about AI safety and genuine competitive interest. And in the end, the financial calculus won. The jury didn't need to answer that question. On May 18, 2026, after less than 2 hours of deliberation, they returned a unanimous verdict. Musk's claims were barred by the statute of limitations. He had waited too long to file, case dismissed. Musk called it a calendar technicality and announced he would appeal. Here is what the trial left unresolved, and what actually matters. Was Elon Musk right that Sam Altman can't be trusted with this technology? Was Sam Altman right that Musk was using the legal system as a competitive weapon? The honest answer is that both things can be simultaneously true. A person can genuinely believe a mission has been betrayed and use that belief strategically for competitive advantage. Motive is rarely pure in either direction. What is not in dispute is this. OpenAI is now heading toward a $1 trillion IPO, potentially one of the largest in history. Let that number sit for a moment. $1 trillion. More than the entire GDP of the Netherlands, Sweden, or Saudi Arabia. The nonprofit that legally owned this technology, the one whose founding documents said its assets were irrevocably dedicated to humanity's benefit, negotiated itself down to a 26% stake in the conversion. The The remaining 74%, hundreds of billions of dollars in value, went to Microsoft, private investors, and the people who built the for-profit version. To put that in human terms, if the original mission had held, $1 trillion in value would have been legally required to benefit humanity as a whole. Instead, it became one of the most valuable private equity events in history. That is not an accusation. That is just the math. The man who donated $38 million to prevent that outcome is appealing a dismissed lawsuit from the headquarters of his competing AI company, and the technology that was supposed to belong to everyone, the one 500 million people use every week, is now on a glide path to making its shareholders some of the wealthiest people in human history. The door that was supposed to be open to everyone has a price tag on it now. Whether that price was inevitable, necessary, or a betrayal depends entirely on who you ask. 2 men, 1 company, 1 broken promise. 1 tried to take it over and failed. 1 stayed and built an empire. 1 sued for $130 billion and lost in under 2 hours. 1 walked out of the courthouse worth $58 billion more than when he walked in. Neither of them is the straightforward villain of this story. Neither of them is the straightforward hero. The technology they built together is reshaping your world right now, and the question of who should control it and whether anyone can be trusted to control it is one that a courthouse in Oakland couldn't answer. It's one we're all still living inside. This is gated. Subscribe. The next door opens soon.